Scott Hebert, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You know, this is one of those amazing moments that I really want you to enjoy because I watched a movie based on your recommendation,
Yeah.
which does not happen. Like, I'm the guy that recommends movies. People don't typically recommend movies to me.
No.
And I you recommended a movie. I actually went and saw it like literally the next day.
Yeah. I know. I went and saw it too. I was surprised, and it's awesome.
Is this what was the last movie you saw in theaters before this one?
Oh man. Um the first animated Spider-Man movie like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, probably before COVID, like probably a year before COVID. Like I don't go to movies that often. I don't even watch movies that often. I watch YouTube all the time. And yeah, no, I just don't do movies that much. I like movies, love movies. I
Mhm.
love good movies. Sorry, I love good movies. Right? I want to invest my time in stuff that's like a great piece of content or that I'm watching it for some reason. You know what I
So
mean?
I have a genuine question then.
Yes.
Roadhouse, is it a good movie?
The original Roadhouse?
Yes, Patrick Swayze.
Uh, yeah, it's a fun one. I had a buddy who loved it in high school. Like his dad was a bouncer, used to be a bouncer
Oh,
and stuff.
cool.
And then so yeah, I liked watching it with him. Like it was just like when I watched that movie, I was like fueled up on like testosterone and like yeah, it was I love that movie. Like it's great. It's fun, right? Like some movies are fun. Some movies are not like an incredible
Mhm.
piece of art, but it's like it's good for what it is. If you're watching it thinking that it's gonna be like,
Transcendent cinema.
I don't know, Gladiator, like you're gonna be a little disappointed. Yeah,
I
exactly.
I want that double feature though now. Gladiator and Roadhouse.
Yeah, that would be a great combination.
So we're talking today Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And also, it's interesting that you said the previous film you had seen was the Spider-Man one, Into the Spider-Verse, because I feel like the animation style between those two films actually are very similar.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's like this in 3D movies, in 3D animation, there's like this homogenous Pixar Disneyfied version of things where everything starts to look the same, and it's like this realism take on cartoons,
Mhm.
basically. I think like as people started animating in 3D, they were just trying to get to more realism, more realism, more realism. And now, not that we're hitting the peak of what that is, but now people are starting to play upon the medium itself.
Mhm.
And I think that's first Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
The first Spider-Man animated movie, and this one are they do things in animation that you can't do in any other medium.
Well, I just like it because I've been on the record that I'm not really a big fan of anime or
Yeah.
manga. It's just
Yes.
there's something about the art style just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
At the same token, I think what they've managed to do with those two films specifically is they take a lot of the elements of that, but have made it in a animation style that I actually enjoy.
Totally. Yeah. It's the animation style was one of the things that I really liked about it.
So Puss in Boots, Last Wish, you saw it when you were in Thailand. Was
Yeah.
it in English or did
Yes.
they do subtitles?
I'll give you the rundown first of all.
Yeah.
I got traveler's diarrhea. Okay.
Oh, I'm
So
so sorry.
shit happens. um,
Literally.
so I was sitting in my hotel room for like 2 days because I had to run to the bathroom all the time.
Mhm.
And I was sitting in my hotel room and I did everything to do so. I was just watching YouTube for and playing chess or whatever I was doing. And these video essays started coming up on Puss in Boots, how amazing it was.
Mhm.
And basically, the first video essays that were coming out on it were not about anything specific about it, but it was just like, this is an amazing movie. I can't describe to you how amazing it is. You just need to go watch it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I watched one and then I watched another one that pretty much said the exact same thing. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I would go watch that. And then there was this mall that was selling like these $2 shirts that we wanted to go to, but it was like 20 minutes away or whatever, so you had to take a cab. So it's not worth it to spend the cab money to go get $2 shirts type of thing. So then I basically talked my, well, it wasn't a hard sell, but I talked him into, let's go get these shirts. We'll go for lunch and then we'll watch Puss in Boots too. And he was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, yes. I'd like to go see this movie. And so yeah, we went and seen it. No, it was in English. I don't remember if there was Thai subtitles or not, but yeah, that's how I got into it, basically.
Mhm. So what
And I
was
told him to
like,
go watch
and then you told me to go watch, and I was like, I'm kind of interested. I like Antonio Banderas.
it. Yeah.
And the thing is, I haven't seen any of the Shrek movies, but
Yeah.
I have seen the first Puss in Boots film,
Yeah.
uh, just randomly, because again, Antonio Banderas, I like Zorro, and that's basically Zorro. So I was like, I'll watch it. And then when you said the second one was good, I was like, I'll wait till it's on streaming. But then I was like, if Scott went to see this movie and is effusive about the movie, it's worth seeing. And I'm
Yeah,
so
and I
glad I
haven't
went to
seen,
see it.
yeah, I haven't I'm like, I think I watched all the Shreks, but I'm not like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
good and I have fun watching them or whatever, but I didn't watch the first I didn't watch the first Puss in Boots. I don't think I have, at least. And or I can't remember, which probably says something about it. So it wasn't
It's
anything
a
special
pretty
or
forgettable movie.
totally. Yeah. That was another thing that I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm going to watch a sequel of something that like I don't care about. I'm like, whatever, I'm in. I've also heard, basically I've also heard that there's a Paddington the Bear movie,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently Paddington 2 is also an amazing piece of, it's amazing apparently. It's got
Have you?
like, I haven't seen Paddington 1, so I don't know if I want to
Yeah.
watch Paddington 2 to watch, you know what I mean?
Um,
Like 4 hours.
I just watched Nick Cage in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which, if it's a film you have not seen,
Uh-huh.
is well worth seeing because Pedro Pascal is in it too, and the two of them are just amazing together. But that's actually one of the jokes is Pedro Pascal's like, my top 5 favorite movies ever made. Paddington 2 is in that list. And then he and Nick Cage watch Paddington 2, and Nick Cage is like crying because it's such a transcendent piece of cinema.
Yeah. Apparently it is. For real. That's funny.
So Puss in Boots 2,
Yeah.
give us a general plot. We're not going to talk too many spoilers, but still, hey, just drop spoiler warning. Puss in Boots 2, we're going to talk about what we think of the movie without thinking too much about it. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to. It's now streaming on Peacock.
And I don't think that it's not a complicated story anyways. So it's not like that there's any spoilers, but there's no twist ending or anything where it's like gonna get ruined. Um Basically it opens with this huge action sequence. Puss in Boots dies. We find out that he's on his last life. He meets this bounty hunter wolf in a bar. Um, he gets in a fight with him. This wolf is like just completely overpowering him and uh, basically takes a swipe. He's got these sickles and takes a swipe at Puss. And there's this moment where Puss is looking at the camera and there's a piece of blood that comes trickling down his forehead and he realizes his own mortality. And
His
so
hair
he goes,
stands up, but he knows
yeah, yeah,
fear.
yeah. So he has the fear of death in him, and he goes to live at a cat sanctuary so he can just, because he's just gonna be retired now, and he meets this little dog, and then he ends up finding about this wishing star where whoever gets to this wishing star can have one wish. And so now he's on a quest to go find the wishing star and ask for his wish is going to be to get his 9 lives back, essentially, so he can keep being the fearless hero. And he meets up with this Kitty Softpaws. The bad guys Jack Horner, Goldilocks and the Three Bears are also another set of villains, and they all go race to get this magic wishing star. Everybody wants it for their own reasons, and yeah, amazing movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I rewatched it yesterday because again it just dropped on streaming. And the moment I rewatched it, I'm like, Scott, do you want to talk about Puss in Boots?
Yeah, I do.
And here we are. This film, it's the writing is perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's
And
really
it did not need to be this good at all.
Sorry, you cut out there. What did you say?
It didn't need to be this good. Like the
No, no,
for
no.
a
It didn't need.
children's film, I am always impressed when you're like, oh, this is actually like enjoyable and it's like a meditative question on mortality.
Yes. Yeah, on mortality, love, friendship. Like, it's got a lot of really deep themes in it. It's terrifying. Like the wolf is there's this whistle that comes on every time that he comes on, and it's creepy as fuck. The uh the editing is amazing. The pacing is fast, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really good. There's no waste in the entire story. There's
One
no
hour and 42 minutes, and it clips along. You never feel like you're,
Yes,
it never feels stalled,
yes.
never drags.
The bad guys are bad. They're great villains. There's this cute little dog, which is like he's just like this endless source of optimism and hope, and he's like a lovable sidekick character that doesn't get annoying at all. The
True.
voice acting is great. The animation style is unique, I would say. I like
Mm-hmm.
it, but I can see someone not liking it. They do this thing where they change the frame rate with different things. Um, like I was basically I was super impressed with the entire thing. Basically, I don't have any nitpicks on it as far as
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have any nitpicks on it basically at all. Especially
Yeah,
for it being Puss in Boots 2, like a kids movie, a sequel to a kids movie, right?
it is. It is pretty well perfect, no pun intended, and that's a testament to the movie. So the first, before I get into like my storytelling nerd out on like how much I love how they did certain things, what were your highlights of the movie? What were the things that stood out to you in the storytelling?
Okay, well, first of all, there's an opening action sequence where he's singing this Fearless Hero song,
Who
and
is your
there's
favorite fearless hero?
and he's fighting all these people in this castle house thing, and he's battling them with his sword, and the music is like dun 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 dun. And there was one part I recognized this as I was watching it the very first time in the theater, and this is like the first minute into the movie. Um, there's a spot where the clanks of the swords time with the music,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not part of the music, but it adds to the music. It's on beat with the music, and it's like, and it all the clangs are like perfect. And I was like, oh shit, okay. I was like, we're fuck, I'm into this. Like this is gonna be dope. Like I could just tell from that. I was like, oh, this is gonna be something different than what I'm used to seeing. So that was definitely a big highlight at the beginning. I think that the wolf character is essentially death. Like he
Mm-hmm.
is death, not essentially he is death, but he is really creepy. They have this whistle that comes on. He basically pops out every time that Puss in Boots is in a high stakes situation where he could possibly die. Death comes and sees him,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this whistle that comes on, and it is creepy. And seeing the cat's hair stand on end makes you feel uncomfortable. Um, yeah, there was a the I almost cried. I don't think I did cry, but I was pretty close. Like I think I had like tears in my eyes at one point, which like
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen. And I asked my buddy afterwards too. I was like, "Did you cry?" And he's like, "Yeah, just about." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "At what part? Is it this part?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, me too." So I was just like, I don't know. You're just like emotionally invested into it. There's not that many, I would say, like super big funny moments,
Mm-hmm.
but there is some good laughs. What else do I like? Yeah, no, I
Burrito
was. Yeah, I like
and
the dog. Yeah, I like the dog for sure. I was in Thailand. I hadn't seen my dog for like 2 months, and there's this really cute little dog sidekick character, and so I was like, oh yeah, okay. I was like 2 days away from going home, so I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home, see my dog, my perrito. But yes. What about you? I would like. It's hard to say because I was literally so impressed with the whole thing. I think the pacing
Mhm.
was one of the things that I was super impressed with. Like, there's no waste. My sister has a 1 year old baby, and so
Mhm.
she just puts on movies for it in the morning while she's like doing
Yeah.
dishes or whatever. And there's this movie called Turbo.
Mhm.
It's like with a snail.
Yep. Ryan
And,
Reynolds voices of the snail.
oh, really? Um, and it was on the other day when I went over there, and I was just like, oh, this is so slow.
Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. But there was just like, yeah, there was just like I was like, oh, this could be like 30 seconds shorter. This scene could be like 30 seconds shorter. Whereas Puss in Boots is just like hit you, hit you, hit you, hit you, hit you, hit
Mhm.
you. And yes, yeah. I would say I don't like going to movies in the theater so much because I get bored.
Yep.
Um, is more the thing. Like, I don't want to sit there for 2.5 hours. Like, if I'm sitting watching a movie, I want to play on my phone. As bad as that sounds, there's not a lot of movies that keep that high pacing. And like
Mhm.
with YouTube and stuff, a good YouTube video needs to hold the pacing because people have so many opportunities just to click off of that video.
Mhm.
So I think that we're getting used to faster pacing and not necessarily giving things so much of a chance. And it's still dramatic. Like, it didn't need big pauses. It didn't. I don't know. I think the pacing was a big thing that I was super impressed with. What about you?
The things that struck me were the pacing, for one thing. The storytelling techniques that they used were brilliant
Yeah.
because it basic idea of any story is that you start with the hero in their state of stability. The inciting incident knocks them off their stability, and the rest of the plot is based on them trying to re-achieve stability. And
Yes.
instead, they usually get something else that brings them back into center. In this case, it shows you where he is at right at the beginning, everything you need to know about Puss without having seen any of the other movies. You get right there in that first scene and that first amazing fight sequence, down to the fact that when he's there and he's like, people of Guatav, whatever. And they're like, this is Del Mar, people of Del Mar.
Yeah.
It tells you
Yeah.
he has done this over and over again. He is living it up. It is, he is in love with his story and he is going to live it to the max. And it tells you that he doesn't fear. Like, again, one of the things that works really well in most of the Disney musicals is the opening song tells you what the character's need is.
Totally.
They're musical. It's literally just without subtext, this is what I long for. In his case, it's telling you right away, Puss does not fear anything. He is an adventurer and he is in love with himself.
Yes. Yeah, for
And
sure.
then he dies. And that the death is the inciting incident where he's down to his last life. And the montage of him losing all of his lives. Which is your favorite Puss death? Is one of the
Oh,
questions I
the
actually did have
weightlifter.
for you.
The
Same.
weightlifter. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I don't need a spotter. I love his big mustache.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Basically, I went with my buddy, and there's a couple parts where he laughed, and that makes it funnier for me when like someone else is enjoying it too. You know what I mean? Because like he was kind of reluctant to go, because he didn't watch any of the videos. Uh, so that made me happy to know that he was enjoying it. Basically, you know what I mean? But I thought that was no, it was great. It was great. The whole thing is great.
And then so it shows, and then when death shows up,
Yes.
there are a couple of scenes like that one where he drops all the coins when they're running away from Big Jack Horners,
Yes.
and death puts them on his eyes.
Yeah. And points.
And that is such a great, great little like nod that it looks intimidating whether you know that in myth they put coins on front of the eyes or not.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Uh,
Um, there's also a if you look closely in the opening sequence when Puss is battling this giant mountain giant or whatever it is.
mhm.
There's a scene where like the crowd there's a crowd of villagers and they all do the wave, and then the wolf is there watching.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah,
little.
I seen it on something. And then I watched it and I was like, there he is. It is there. Yeah, it's because he's there, right? He's there watching.
Mhm.
Crazy.
In the first plot beat is when he finds out about the map, which again hits at about the 25% mark. I love Jack Horner in this film.
Yeah.
But something that I thought about more after you and I texted a little bit about it, the flashbacks.
Yes.
I don't usually like flashbacks in movies. I feel like they're usually pretty lazy, just because it feels like it's exposition.
Yes.
Because we couldn't figure out any other way of telling you this information, we're
Yes.
going to just throw a scene in, which
Yes.
in a poorly done film feels very jarring.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, it doesn't. It earns all of the exposition it actually gives. Anything that
Yeah.
tells you directly works,
Yeah.
down to even the deaths.
Yes.
Like they make it entertaining.
Totally. I would say yes. I like your basically. I said, I think when we were texting, I said, there's no exposition, and then you just said, well, what about this, this, and this with like Jack Horner and stuff, and I said, no, that was a flashback that was like done well. Essentially, it was using the medium
Mm-hmm.
properly. Um, it's not so much that characters are just sitting there talking to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
About like, oh, well, when I was a kid, this and this and this happened, even though that is kind of what
Well,
happened.
it's so I rewatched that scene specifically because I was
Yeah,
like, this is I want to see how they did it. And it's
so
when
did I.
the two ladies are delivering the map, and she's like, do the nursery rhyme, like the fairy
Yeah,
tale Jack Horner.
yeah.
And so again, it comes up organically to force the explanation,
Yes.
not back when I was a boy. And even when he does
Well,
the thing.
wait, when it flashes, does that flashback? It does this flashback to where he's Jack Horner eating the pie, and no one is watching him at this thing because it's lame nursery rhyme, right? And then it flashes over to Pinocchio, and he's like, "I'm a real boy," and it's like this whole carnival thing, and everybody cheers.
You
And
see
that was
Geppetto
another
with the
spot.
gold.
That was another. That was it. Yeah, that was another spot though where my buddy like laughed out loud, and I was like, okay, that works. Like that's to me
Mm-hmm.
why I know that worked, because
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it was a funny moment, right? But yeah, I think that it was also short enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
like we talk a lot about, you don't want to tell,
Mm-hmm.
you want to show, but in that sequence they're using the flashback to show. And then
Well,
at the end, closer to the end, Jack Horner is talking about, basically there's this little Jiminy Cricket character,
yeah.
right?
I'm your conscience. And he has a
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart voice, which is perfect.
I'm your conscience, Jack.
Or
Um
wait, is he Jordan Peterson?
no, he's no, he's the Wonderful Life guy.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart, but
Yeah.
just it made me think of the
Yeah, I
accent.
just feel the same. There's a spot though where the little cricket is basically trying to guide this evil character, and everything he does is like, he's like, Jack, you're not going to actually shoot this puppy in the face, and he's like, yeah, of course I am. Like, yeah, I am, right? And so he's like, basically the cricket's at his wit's end, right? The cricket's at
Uh-huh.
his wit's end, and he's like we gotta,
You're evil.
well, no, he's like, we gotta dive deeper. What happened to you? Like, what happened to you as a child? And he's like, nothing.
Loving parents,
I just had a
inheriting a
loving family.
bakery
I
fortune.
had a pie empire I could inherit. Yeah. So he kind of, yeah. So he explains his childhood, right? He is telling, but at the same time, it came because this cricket is at his wit's
Mhm.
end with
Yep.
like, oh my God, I don't know. This is the hardest. I'm the conscience for this evil person, and I need some sort of like, I need some more help with this. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it wasn't just like, it wasn't out of nowhere. It's in context with the
Exactly.
whole
And that was the other thing I was going to bring up because it does work that way because again, they tell you things, but it comes about naturally. It is a part of the story. It makes sense within the context. Also, I love
Yes.
that throughout that sequence is when they're walking over the baker's dozen who have formed a human bridge for him
Totally.
to walk across. He's like, I don't need anybody except maybe these guys right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love how, again, it's showing through character choice and decision who this guy is.
Yeah, my last thought about that, about the flashbacks type thing, is that is what I texted you. I think you left me on red, so I'd like to hear what you thought about it. But I basically put, a flashback done right is the difference between an amateur and a pro.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm it's hard for me to say that that's a definitive difference between amateur and a pro. Because there are pros that do it and it just doesn't turn out well. Because again, you can in
No, but
filmmaking,
you can be a professional and have an amateur
yes,
moment, right?
yes.
I just think that
It's definitely a pro versus amateur move.
yeah,
Because like so
yeah,
Casablanca, we discussed it recently with Roland. That film
mhm.
has a flashback sequence in it, and it actually works, and it doesn't feel jarring, despite the fact it's literally taking you years back in a different country. Because at that point, you want to know what happened.
Yes.
It sets it up well. Versus, I'm trying to think of like a really badly done flashback. It's just
Oh, like all those 90 ones, like in like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
yes.
or whatever, they would be like, let me think, and then right?
Well, okay,
Oh,
so
let me
like
think about that. Okay.
How I Met Your Mother is
Yes.
actually a show that is basically entirely around
It's a
flashbacks and
memory.
flash forwards.
Yeah.
And they do that
Yes.
well because that's baked into the premise and it's the structure. So it's part of the concept that you buy into. Anytime they do it, it's with purpose, there's guidance. It's just, it can be really annoying if it's done poorly. And especially, I think of it in books.
Yes.
Uh, of course. Double or Nothing is a horrible Bond book written by I can't remember her name, Kim Sherwood.
Uh-huh.
I could not even finish the book, but there are a couple of moments where it does like flashback sequences, and you're like, this is painful, and
Yeah.
it,
Jarring.
it makes no sense because all you're really doing is you're trying to pay off something, give a reason for something later to happen, or
Yes.
even trying to justify why something just happened instead of letting it be a part of the plot. Whereas again, like in this case with Puss in Boots, every one of the flashback sequences is paying off
Yes.
rather than
Well,
trying to explain something that you've already done and having to uh what's the term for when you have to fix continuity because you've written something poorly?
continuity error.
Yeah, but basically when you're trying to repair your going backwards to fix something that you did
Yes.
to correct a mistake.
Yeah, like a revision.
Yeah, a
Oh,
revision.
Retcon. Is that
A
what it is?
retcon, yes. A
Retcon.
retcon.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the main differences. All the flashbacks in this further the plot. They pay off things that they've already set up instead of retconning to explain what they've done.
Yes. And also I think that like when a flashback is done poorly, the editing could have been different in the positioning of something. You had written a short story the other
Mhm.
day, and the it was a 3-page short story, and basically you had this. The first 2 pages were linear, and then the last one was a flashback. And I basically told you, I don't think this works like this because you're just telling me what happened instead of like letting
Mhm.
me, the reader, be immersed in this world. And you made some changes to it, and it worked. Taking basically the sequence and putting it in a different order, and
Mhm.
it worked much better without that flashback element, because essentially that's what it was. It was just you had 2/3 of it up front and then a flashback at
Mhm.
the end, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I
With
just
like a
thought
coda at the bottom. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting, right? Um, it's
Well,
just
and that's
interesting.
where
Yeah,
I think that's a perfect example of we live in a post Nolan
yeah.
storytelling world, and he is one of the directors that he's not the one that pioneered it, but he really took the nonlinear storytelling idea
Yeah.
with his films and made it work. That's something that not everyone can or should do. It's something that has to
No,
work within the context of the plot. Like Little Women, the new one by Greta Gerwig. My mom didn't like it very much because it used nonlinear storytelling methods. I enjoyed it more because I've been around that particular type of trope more.
mhm,
But really, if Greta Gerwig is an amazing director, if it had been someone else trying to do it that way, it might have actually played out poorly even to me.
totally. Yeah, it's there's a give and a take with it for sure. For
Mm-hmm.
sure.
So Puss in Boots 2, the other thing that I really enjoyed, like one of the first things when I watched this movie that struck me, so they have the map, and
Yes.
whoever holds the map depends on like what version of the hero's journey the characters have to go down.
Yes.
And I just thought that that was such a cool storytelling premise, because what it does is it changes the obstacles that they have to overcome to get there, depending on who was holding the map at the time. And because then the map is the thing everyone fights over, it
Yes.
literally changes the context of what they're doing. It's a plot mechanic that affects the plot itself.
Totally. But it was also a plot mechanic that uh, was an incredibly easy way to give us more information on the characters without
Mm-hmm.
having to say anything. With
Yes.
nothing. Like you had one sequence where basically Puss grabs the map. They're in the dark forest. Okay, they have to go in
Mhm.
this dark forest where this wishing star is. Puss, it's all like rainbowy and sunshiny. Puss grabs the map and he has to go through. I don't know. I forget what they're called, but they're all basically fearing of death type things. And then
Mhm.
the female Kitty
Kitty.
Softpaws grabs the map, and they're all basically about dying alone because she's fearing that she can't trust anyone. And then the little sidekick dog holds the map, and it goes back to rainbows and sunshine. And it's like he has to skip through like the pocket full of posies and like take the whatever the quick and easy solutions, right? Like he just like because he's living in the present moment. He's got nothing. He's got no wish. He's already
Mhm.
doing it. He's just a dog living in the moment, just being happy to be with his friends, right? So
Which
it's just like sorry, that sequence there
mhm.
showed so
Mhm.
much about those
Yep.
characters instead of having to exposit it all.
Well, even so, two things. One, Perito, it's a perfect example of why he is a good supporting character, but you can't build a story necessarily around him because he doesn't want. Like he has something that he wants, but he doesn't have the same like deep-seated issues that Puss and Kitty do. That's why he makes a good character to be a supporting role to
Well,
help the
yeah,
hero.
he's just a stupid dog essentially, but he just like as soon as he makes friends with Puss, he's like, oh, we're best friends. Like that's it. We're best friends. I'm a talking dog. You're a talking cat. You're not gonna tell my secret. We're best friends. Like that's it. Like he's already made it. You know what I mean? He wanted a friend or a
Pickles?
family. Yeah, he wanted a friend or a family or whatever, but he just accepts that right away. Where the whole rest of the movie for all the other characters, they're struggling. Basically, Goldilocks and the three
Mm-hmm.
bears. Goldilocks wants to have a real family, not this bear's family, because she's basically an orphan with these bears. Kitty Softpaws wants someone she can trust, and Puss in Boots wants to get his 9 lives back.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, wants to not fear death is what he wants to do, or to accept his own mortality. Maybe is a better way to put it. But
He wants to have the lives so he doesn't have to fear dying, whereas his need is he needs to accept that he can die.
yes. So basically, though, all those three characters, all those three characters had what they wanted already if they chose to look inside of themselves and see that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, yeah, I kind of lost where I was going with that, but
But
that's it.
but it's important for the way the story is structured that it's perfect because it creates natural conflict by everyone wants the MacGuffin, the map, the wishing star, and everyone's trying to get to it because you have multiple competing interests for the same thing. It naturally drives the plot forward. It's really a simple mechanic, but it works so well when each one of those characters actually has a good story arc. Like the Goldilocks, Goldie and the Three Bears are brilliant because it's a satire of like the British crime family,
Yeah,
and it's brilliant. The voice actors they chose, Florence Pugh played Goldie, but the other actors I couldn't remember their names for the life of me. Still, just all fantastic performances. But even like again, it gives exposition
Mama Bear,
without.
Papa Bear, Baby Bear.
Yeah, it gives excellent exposition without having to show rather than tell. When you get to the cabin and you see this is what Goldie, the day that Goldie arrived in their little home, uh, each one of the bears even has something that they want, even
Yes.
though it's not like huge. Baby Bear wants to be like a master thief. Papa Bear wants to be able to just sleep and hibernate. And Mama Bear wants to help Goldie. Like, again,
Yeah.
each. I was recently rereading a book on story structure, and every scene should start with what do the characters want? And
Yeah.
then when you have a cast, how do the wants of other characters in the scene conflict with what the main protagonist wants?
Yeah. You know, basically, like act like I think that you're more fascinated with like actors and actresses than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I still like them and know who they are and stuff. And one of the things that made me realize how good this movie was is that afterwards I was like, oh yeah, Jack Horner was John Mulaney.
Yes.
I was like, there was no, like, he's got such a distinct voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was actually in that Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie
Yep.
too, and he was
He was Spider Ham.
yeah, Spider-Ham. And he was like Spider-Ham is John Mulaney. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like he was Spider-Ham, but to a certain extent, Spider-Ham is John Mulaney. And he's got such a distinct voice that I think it's super hard to pull that apart. But basically why I'm saying this is because 2 or 3 days afterwards, I was like, oh, that was John Mulaney. I was so into
Invested.
yeah, I was so invested in that this was Jack Horner that I didn't even realize it until afterwards. And
Mm-hmm. Well, there's just
I
so
was like, oh,
much.
that
There's
was a
so
good movie.
much good incident even in this movie. Like, it doesn't. These are things that don't need to take up a lot of time, but it adds to the texture of it. A lot of stuff going on in the background. Like when they show everything that Jack Horner has put into his like magical keep.
Yeah.
All the different stuff from different fairy tales and myths that are magical because he's collecting them. They have the little ship with the Lilliputans.
Yes.
And then when Goldie in a bottle, and when Goldie and the bears attack, she like grabs the bottle, cracks it, and like holds the shards, and you see like little Lilliputans like hanging off the edge of the ship.
Yeah,
Ah!
for sure.
Again, just
It's great.
good little incident throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no waste in it. There's no little extra things. It's not like, why is this line in here? The whole thing is just, yeah, I could see someone thinking that the pacing is too fast because it is quite fast, but it is
Mm-hmm.
a masterclass in like pacing and storytelling. And yeah, I was so pleasantly thrilled with it. And I was like, oh man, now I gotta tell everybody to watch Puss in Boots. And so I've been telling everybody to watch it and stuff. And then and watch, like, basically you just gotta watch it because I can tell you it's awesome, but you're not gonna understand until you see it. And like, I don't know, I don't want to say like that it's the greatest movie ever made, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's very subjective and we need some time away from it and to let it like percolate or whatever. But it's very good. Probably not the greatest movie ever made, but it's very, very good.
Mm-hmm. It's currently in the Oscars for Best Animated Picture.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the other ones. I mean, Guillermo del Toro has a Pinocchio, which,
Yeah, yeah.
since the Academy likes him, he'll probably get it.
Apparently that movie is also really good.
That's what I've heard. I mean, it's Guillermo del Toro. Like, the guy
Yeah.
is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
but I would love to see this get the Oscar just because. And
Yeah,
I,
it's yeah, it's great.
the best credit I give this movie is they tease at the end the possibility of another Shrek film because he's
Yes.
like going back to uh
Far,
far and
far
away,
away.
far, far away.
Yeah.
If the same guys do the writing on a Shrek movie that did this one,
Yeah.
I would probably watch it.
Have you seen the other Shreks? You haven't, right? No.
No, just no interest.
Um,
Like, I know enough about the movies. I've heard the first one's like really good, but even at that, so much of here's another perfect example of what this movie does really well that will, I think, make it last longer. From what I've heard, the other Shrek movies do lots of pop culture references that are specific to the time when the film was made,
for sure.
which that's something that was new and innovative at the time, you can say, but it also ages something really quickly. Eventually, you don't get the same nods. You don't know that, like, okay, that probably the Matrix thing is always going to be something because it's a movie trope, but like references to different things going
Yes.
on at the time, none of it. Puss in Boots doesn't have any
Yeah.
references to things at the time, except for it has the on the star. They do the Sergio Leone, um,
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood thing, which again works because that's something everyone knows. It's
Mexican
been around for a
standoff.
while. Mexican standoff, and they also do what was the there are at that very first Puss in Boots fight, there are actually like 2 or 3 Zorro-esque scenes
Oh yeah.
that I immediately went, that's in the Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, for
When
sure.
he lights the giant thing of explosions of
Mhm.
fireworks, that's the scene where he lights all the stuff on fire. The doggy pile and he's not underneath.
Yeah, yeah.
That's from that fight scene. When he like cuts the clothes off of the bad guy,
Right.
he did that to Catherine Zeta-Jones,
Yeah.
transcendent moment
I
for all of
remember.
cinema.
Yeah.
Every warm-blooded male
Yeah.
remembers that scene.
Woo.
Who am I to deny this movie? And there's just, it's again, it's really tight. It's really good. It's a well-crafted movie that I was taken aback. I was surprised. That's why we're talking about now.
Yeah, me too. And then I've watched it like sometimes I watched it and then I put it on I think twice while I'm painting just because like sometimes it's nice to have it's nice to have something in the background where I don't have to watch it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But both times that I watched it back, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is tight. This is gonna be something I'll like rewatch just because I'm like so like first of all on top of it, we haven't even talked about the actual like themes and message of the
No, I
story,
was
which is
just
probably the
about to
best
say
part.
that.
Yeah.
And
Um
so, your thoughts?
it's amazing. Uh it's a it is.
Mhm.
It's a movie about essentially it's a movie about living life to the fullest and maybe looking inwards to see if you already have what you have. And it
Mhm.
kind of makes me a little emotionally tingly just like thinking about it. But it's like a, it's a story about death and aging and friendship and love. And I don't know if you could cram any more themes into an hour and 45 minutes.
The I love how it gives Puss two things that, and they're related. The You quickly find out at the beginning when the doctor's like, "Is there anyone you can be with?" He's like, "Everybody loves Puss in Boots." And he's like, "Well, is there any one person?"
Yeah.
And you realize then he's sitting there drinking alone, like he is the living that rock star lifestyle where he's famous, but doesn't have anyone close.
Yeah.
He is
Shallow.
essentially alone
Totally.
and trying to and living off the hype of what he believes about himself and what other people believe about him.
Yes.
And then the fact that he literally has to fight death and confront the fact that he is going to die.
Yes.
I at the end it just ties those things so nicely together. The rewatch on this was really interesting because I didn't pick up on the bounty hunters. Like I very first scene with the bounty hunter, I'm like, oh, I get like the allegory for death that they're using because he has the scythes.
Yeah.
Kind of a dead giveaway there.
Yeah. Oh, funny guy.
But
We should put a pun spoiler on, just like a pun warning on this episode.
pun alert. That's what you could do on your live streams. If I
Yeah.
pun in your chats, you can have like the pun
No,
ban.
block, deleted, ban, forever ban. Everybody's banned. No puns. Cheap humor.
But they do such a great job setting up in that scene because again, they aren't explicitly his death until towards the middle. Up until then, that first scene, he's like, a lot of people think they can escape me, but I always show up.
Oh yeah, I
There's
know.
just the foreshadowing they really do a great job on, and that's one of the few things that like there's nothing that's too different because again it's not like that shocking that he's death, but there's a lot of stuff that you realize there's more subtext to it when you go and rewatch it.
Totally. And even at the very end, in the final scene, um, Puss and Death are having this final battle on the wishing star, basically. And gets the upper hand at first, and he's like, "Who's the voice of Death?"
It's not someone well known.
Okay,
It
whatever. He's just got a
is.
really growly, good voice, and "What's the matter, Puss? Life our lives flashing before your eyes." And then Antonio Barris is like, "No, just one." Like, and it's great, right? Because I was just like, "Oh man."
Wagner Moura.
Okay, I
I
don't.
might be pronouncing his last name wrong because he's Brazilian. Oh, so he is in Narcos and Elite Squad, which Elite Squad is apparently much loved in Brazil. But
Yeah.
I do like just it resolves the story, the plot theme well.
Oh
And
yeah.
if a kids movie can, after I watch it, make me go, am I too in love with my own myth? Do I crowd people out with my own image of myself? When a
Yes.
children's film, thank you, thanks, Scott. I need those are rhetorical questions.
Yeah.
It it really is well done. If you as an adult can question it, because again, we all eventually die.
Um. Yeah. I'm just trying to pull up a quote. Basically, though, I'm just trying to pull up this quote from something that you sent me.
Mhm.
You sent me a critical drinker video of the Puss in Boots destroys
Yeah,
modern Hollywood. But the top comment on it was a quote by C.S. Lewis, and it's a children's story that is only enjoyed by children is a bad children's story. And I was like, oh, that's bomb.
that's brilliant and it's accurate because
Yeah.
part of what like C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien really understood is that myth and children's stories are opportunities to tell really poignant themes
Yes.
in very simple ways.
Yeah. Well, kids watch the same movie because over and over and over because they're trying to learn about the world essentially. And so by watching this movie over, because basically, if I can watch Puss in Boots once and understand. I have a higher comprehension of
Mhm.
all of everything in there. But those kids are watching the movie the first time and they're understanding things about
Mhm.
interactions and about whatever, everything. They're learning about everything, right? And so like I was just saying, my sister watches movies or whatever, but she watches the baby watches Zootopia
Mhm.
like 5 or 6 days a week, right? And she watches it. She's playing and stuff with her toys, but every time I go in there, she watches it. And she likes the Shakira song and she likes but she's watching it over and over and over, trying to like get that in there, get that in there, get that in there. So it's like these deep, complex themes. I remember doing it. I did it with The Lion King.
Mm.
I was probably a little older, but I still watched The Lion King a lot. Did you have a movie that you watched on repeat?
Apparently my mom says The Sound of Music.
Nice.
Besides that, I think it was Toy Story and what's the other movie? Toy Story and Little Mermaid were like the two big ones for my childhood, which in hindsight explains so much about A, my tastes in women, and B, my fragile view of mortality.
That's funny. Yeah, I liked The Lion King a lot. And then my brother and sister always liked All Dogs Go to Heaven, and so we watched that one quite a bit too. Like I remember watching that one all the time. For whatever reason, I didn't like that one as much. I didn't like the crocodile singing in the bottom; it creeped me out. But yes, pretty much. That's yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about this movie?
I think that I am just gonna people, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's worth it. It's really good. I mean, it's still showing in theaters right now. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah,
Because it came out 3 months ago,
end of December.
end of December. So yeah,
Yeah,
about 3 months ago, which most movies, they only stick around in theaters for about a month these days.
yeah, it's crazy because it's already on
Scott,
screen.
Scott, tell the people at home what your non-Puss in Boots related content is, what you are up to, and where people can go learn more about you and your work and people.
I'm a Scott Hebert art on YouTube. Basically, I'm making oil paintings and making YouTube videos. I'm kind of like clarified also to be the best art entertainer that I can, meaning making banger videos and really good oil paintings. And I'm starting a live stream show soon, which will be like a nice little painting show for people that want to check it out. It's basically hopefully art entertainment for adults. So that's what's up. Making oil
You are
paintings.
Bob Ross for adults.
Well, yeah, in a sense. But Bob Ross was I'm not doing tutorials. Bob Ross, that's the other thing that I've like figured out is that a lot of painting content is tutorials, and I'm not doing tutorials. I'm not doing a how-to. It's not explicitly a how-to because I'm not showing you how to. You're gonna see how to because I'm painting the same way, the same process over and over and over. But I want it to be much more of like I want it to be much more of a entertainment show rather than like a for people. I want it to be for adults, like a just a fun show where I can make like um bad jokes, risque jokes, I would say. Like, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just want to make that's it. That's it. I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm Scott Hebert art on YouTube. That's where you can find me. Check it out.
All right, Scott, thanks again for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.